States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, those fighting the good fight in the Ukraine, our veterans, and those fighting in the conflict in the Middle East, and also in memory of Andrew D. Minikel. He was struck and killed by a motor vehicle on June 28th, working in the Connecticut Department of Transportation in the Wharton Brook connector near I-91. May his memory be eternal. Thank you. Sal? We're going to do the American Creed.
American
Sal's
Creed.
getting the paperwork.
I think you have copies if you'd like to follow along. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies.
Sal, do we have anybody from the public?
Brian Whitefield? Whitfield, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Brian Whitfield, Walcott Lane, Gaylordsville. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council. I must apologize because to this point, I never really had a chance to attend council meetings. However, the last meeting was my first. The first thing I'd like to do is to congratulate you, Mr. Mayor, to add my name, for the work that you and your team did in securing a AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's. Hopefully, our future leaders of this town will continue the high economic standard which you've set and to keep our town financially safe and secure. At the last council meeting, having stood together and reciting our Pledge of Allegiance, we continued to stand for the American Creed. What a great expression of our commitment to our country, our Constitution and laws, and to expand on that pledge. And that took only less than a minute. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I was over there at the last meeting, and there was a lady who read the creed, but was physically unable to stand. However, I did notice two members of the council who did not stand, one appearing to doing nothing, and the other appearing to shuffle papers, or perhaps read the agenda coming down. Since that last council meeting, I've reread those words of the American Creed a number of times, and several things came to mind. Like burning our flag is an expression of freedom of speech covered by the First Amendment. In many of our universities and colleges, free speech and free thought is limited or may be suppressed, depending on your ethnicity or political beliefs. Many professors wish to rewrite the history of this country, not based on promise, hard work, and success, but on white supremacy. There are those in Congress who would like to throw our Constitution out the window and rewrite it. Who would have thought that on this July 4th, several calls had to be made to the White House to advise them that the celebratory flag hanging from the White House represented a celebration that already passed, but our American flag was not hanging out there. We had to call the White House, but then again, it's the White House. 284 years ago, upon signing the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin made a comment saying that, well, we will probably all hang together, or most assuredly, we will hang separately. But we will not hang. For loving and respecting our flag, our Constitution, and our laws, but we must stand together no matter what our political belief is. I didn't say personal beliefs, because with the words of the American Creed, I don't know how anybody could be personally against it. This creed should be sent to other towns, and hopefully maybe a little spark of more patriotism will develop. Because in the divisiveness in our country today, we need more patriotism. We need more standing together. Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
God bless our country and God bless this council.
Thank you.
Coach Tony.
Good evening, Coach Tony Morrissey, Mine Hill Road, New Milford. It's good to see you guys again. I'm here actually for two reasons. The public speaking is really just to make sure that you're all aware and you're all invited to our 4th annual Overdose Recovery Festival, which is taking place here on the beautiful town green. And it starts with a 5K down on Youngsfield Road, as we have done for the last 4 years. It's been 1,794 days since we lost our son, Brian Cody. And I'm here to tell you that this community has lost nearly 60 people since 2015. On average, 6 people a year that we have lost in Little New Milford to the overdose epidemic. I think we're making great strides toward bringing humanity and assistance to this epidemic that the entire nation is facing. And I'm really encouraged that there will be some more conversation about this in later parts of tonight's session. I am just going to ask that everybody here in the crowd, on the town council, your friends, your family, please bring them down. Please bring them down. We never thought that this was going to happen to our son, ever. We're a good family. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I work for a Fortune 500 company. It can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to your loved ones. Come down. We've got live music, we've got crafters and vendors, we've got kids' activities, they're all for free. The 5K, it's going to raise awareness, right? It's all for free. You know, when we all come together as a community, that's how we can beat this thing, okay? Let's keep making those steps forward, let's keep going. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the end of the list.
Okay. Katie?
Consent agenda, items 4A and B. I'd like to move that we approve the prior minutes and the tax collector.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item number 5, I'd like to move that the council approve the request from the New Milford Police Department to accept a donation of $200 from Maggie Chapius and Jay Lewin, $100 to go towards the K-9 program, and $100 toward the good and welfare of the officers in the police department.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item 5B, I'd like to move for the Parks and Recreation Department that they're allowed permission to accept the following donations. This is for the 8-mile and 5K road races. That would be 500 A&B PTSMA Holdings, Inc., doing business here as physical therapy and sports medicine centers. $50 Educational Play Care Limited, Bright Path, donated. A donation of $500 from DAC Newco DSO LLC, which is Dental Associates of New Milford, and $500 from New Vance Health. Parks and Rec is requesting that the monetary donations be deposited in their revenue account number 104-50500-44709. And the Parks and Rec Commission would like to thank all those donors for their generosity.
Second.
Put a dollar sign in front of that 500.
Oh, yeah.
No, those are shares.
Yep, we'll make sure.
I don't, okay. Who did second that?
I did.
Tom?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item number 6, I'd like to move that we approve the recommendation from the opioid settlement subcommittee to allow them to appropriate $24,000 to offset funeral expenses of families in need. The money coming from the,
Opioid settlement.
the settlement fund itself. It doesn't say that, but. So that's $24,000 that they'd like to use.
Set aside. Yeah.
Yep.
We have a second from Paul. Tony, can you come up and talk about the committee? And I believe Amy's here too?
Is Amy here?
Yep.
Again, I'm Tony Morrissey. Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this proposal. I need to get my glasses on because I'm getting old, guys. Bear with me. Miss Amy, do you want to say hello to the gang?
Absolutely. Nice to see everyone. Hi.
Miss Amy is part of the team, the opioid settlement task force, with myself, Miss Allison Fulton, Mr. Mark Eccles, and Miss Jill Kuhlgath is helping administer the notes. Over the last several months, we've been meeting on a pretty regular basis to talk about how do we support this community? How do we end this overdose epidemic in our community here in New Milford? And some great ideas have come forward. And this is the first. There's going to be many more, so guys, get used to seeing us. We're going to be here quite a bit over the next several months. We thought that this one was the most, maybe the most touching, maybe the most important. They're all important, so I don't want to really say that, but here's the problem statement. Drug overdose is the leading cause of death for Americans under 50 years of age, and the death rate continues to rise due to the opioid crisis, which has been declared a national emergency, and many families don't have money for a funeral, exacerbating an already heartbreaking moment for far too many families that they found themselves in while trying to help their loved ones. So imagine, if you will, going months, years, sometimes decades, trying to help your loved one, trying to pull them out of the grips of addiction. And then all of a sudden one night you get that call, or one morning you get that call that no family wants to get. Okay, I've gotten that call. Unfortunately, many families get that call after they have exhausted all their financial means. They have paid for recovery services, they've paid for detox services. You know, it's very expensive. And a lot of times the insurance companies don't help us. They make the rules and they're not there for us when we need them. It's the biggest tragedy in the whole game. However, our group determined that this was a way to help those families that get that phone call, don't know what to do, cannot lay their loved one to rest. So the proposal is through the use of the funding available to the town of New Milford from the opioid settlement. The suggestion is to maintain a continuous holding of $24,000 in a fund to help offset the final expenses currently burdening families in need. Specifically, the Legacy Fund, which is what we're calling this, would help cover the cost of final services up to $4,000 per individual, which is a number that we arrived to after doing a lot of analysis with providers in the area. You know, our local funeral home, some that are across the state. This is the number. This number wasn't just picked out of the air because we thought it was a nice number. This is basically on the very low end of what it costs to bury a loved one. Okay? The criteria. The criteria is the deceased was a New Milford resident with a history of substance use disorder. They would, the folks that would qualify for this would conform to SMI guidelines currently used by New Milford Social Services and New Milford Senior Center. And then there would be an exception to use the DTI waiver in exceptional circumstances. And if we need to talk about those details, we can certainly do that. But Mr. Mayor, thank you for your insights on putting this together, especially with the DTI waiver piece of it and the SMI guidelines. The application process. The application process should be available through New Milford Social Services and or the New Milford Senior Center. So anybody who's looking to take advantage of this grant, this legacy fund, this is where you would go to apply. Applications would be reviewed by the departments above, using the guidelines outlined in this proposal, and any additional recommendations included by the town council. The estimated cost, again, $24,000. That would be a continuous holding of $24,000. So if 1 year we had, six families come through, we would replenish that with future funding from the opioid settlement. The way that we arrived at that, very important to know this, the market cost that I explained before, multiplied by the average number of overdose deaths here in New Milford, which is 6. 6 people, 6 families are being impacted every year by this. And many of them are exacerbated. They just cannot afford the final expenses to lay their loved one to rest. So we thank you for considering this. Ms. Amy, anything to add?
Absolutely. Thank you to the town council for considering this proposal. Like Tony said, we'll be back with some more, but we thought that this was a good idea for our first proposal, given that it's so helpful to families in this community.
Are there any questions? Can we help with
Any
any?
questions? Chris?
Ms. Mary Jane?
So,
Chris and then Mary Jane?
yeah, I guess my question is that I thought that the money was supposed to be used more for prevention and educational services.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure, if I look back at some previous minutes, and I'd like Randy to talk, because our meeting from March 2023, we talked about the subcommittee will determine uses for the money and the areas required, including education and helping others with substance abuses. But more importantly, in May 8th, 2023, Attorney DeBella was discussing the ordinance, and he said, and I'm quoting from the minutes, he said the money has to be used for certain things directly related to preventing opioid use.
Yeah. That's a great call out. Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. I'll argue that this does directly impact the families who've been impacted. Addiction affects more than the person struggling with their addiction, but also the entire family. There are brothers and sisters. There are sons and daughters who are impacted. You take the money from their family to pay for their services. Now these children don't have nothing to eat. These kids won't be able to get their clothing. This is, as we read, because what we did was a study of how other towns across the state were doing this. And many of them had overlapping ideas. We can bring back further information about what we thought the 7 tenets of this program were, but this was definitely inside of it. I'll also point out that this is just a small fraction of what we're holding on hand already. We have $200,000 already. This is what, 1/4 of that? Yes, sir.
Well, but it also looks like what you're saying is, the other thing I wanted to, and I'd like Randy to comment on my point, but also if you want to fully hold 24,000, so every time you go to refill that fund, would you be coming back to town council for that approval?
Well, I would defer to what you guys would request of us. We're happy to do whatever it takes. I'll be here as long as I breathe, because this is that important. So if you need me to come back, I'll do that, sir.
Randy?
Your Honor, it's actually a town council call. In other words, what the committee has done is they've come with a recommendation, which is a conclusion. That conclusion is that this would be assistance to a family, and it would indirectly have an impact on education and actually use, the disorder itself. So that's a call that the town council has to make. Is it classic education? Is it classic treatment? No, it isn't. But that's a call that in your wisdom and in your minds,
And
you have to
Randy, in
make.
your opinion, does that still fall within the spirit
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
of of it?
Yes, and that's a great question, and here's why. Because you're talking about impact on families. And the reality is that this is something toward preventing this over and over again. The evergreen nature of it, keeping it evergreen, is simply an administrative matter, instead of keeping coming back to the town council. So if you make a decision tonight that it qualifies, and I think you have that authority to do it, then you would also make an evergreen provision. Evergreen meaning that that fund is continually replenished, so you don't have to keep coming back. Because if the policy is such that this helps, and this is part of our prevention going forward, then there's no reason to come back and ask for more if it's an evergreen provision. If you do it, I do suggest to become an evergreen provision to avoid this over and over again. But it's your call. It's exquisitely your call.
And Mary Jane and then Kate.
And may I just add, some of the things that you're thinking about sir, are forthcoming.
Before you- I just, really, it's for Randy and you.
This one.
You have a committee, the opioid settlement committee, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did they, your committee, I don't remember who's on, but did you all decide that that is what you want to use this money for?
Yes, ma'am.
This amount of money and make it an evergreen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I want. Thank you.
Mary Jane?
Just a quick question, what's a DTI waiver?
Debt to income ratio waiver.
What is it? What is it?
So basically, this would be debt to income. So this would be employed in situations where last year somebody had a great high-paying job, they got laid off, and their documentation hasn't really caught up with their debt to income situation at the time, right? So it's kind of a safety catch for anybody, for any family who's sort of fallen on hard times over the most recent past. To help sort of with that situation. And that would be done under the current, I believe this is already in practice, right, Mr. Bass?
It is.
Yeah.
Social services and senior center.
Yeah, so they know when to employ this and when it qualifies and things like that. But what we're trying to do is make sure that no family has to go through this, right? And again, way too many. 12 of Brian Cody's friends, their families had to go through this. Half those families didn't have money. Our foundation has done this as part of our programs in the past, and we've helped 4 families in the last 3 years, and it was thousands of dollars. And so this, we thought, would be a great way to bring hope to the families, right? And help folks just kind of like come to terms with what has happened. It's a very powerful way to support those families in our community that have lost somebody. And I'm asking you guys, please consider it.
I have one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
There's been a lot in the news about the settlement with the Sackler family. What have you heard, that the whole thing is
So we actually
bye-bye?
We actually were Mr. Tong. Mr. Tong joined my wife and I at an event last November where she was recognized for her work in the community. And Mr. Tong is vigorously going after this. He actually thinks that this was a play in the right direction. Understand there's more than one settlement in play here. There's multiple settlements going on. I would defer to the Attorney General's office. They certainly know more than I do. But I can tell you that we are talking about funds here tonight that are already in hand. Right? Again, we have $207,000 already in hand. And we've got great ideas for how we can expend this. Just to give you just to give you a preview, some of the other things, we have spent some time with Chief Cerruto talking about his community navigator program, or whatever we're calling it these days. He had given us some really good suggestions. So there will be some proposals on how to bolster our police department and our community nonprofits and things like that, or put programs together that funds can become available to them to help them doing what they're doing. And also prevention techniques, kits and hygiene kits and clothing opportunities, things like that. Sober housing vouchers, super important part. So there's a lot more to come. Some really, really great creative ideas are going to come forward.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, one more. The committee, was it a unanimous
Yes, sir.
agreement by the committee that this was something?
It was.
Any? Yogi? And then Alex?
Mr. Scott?
Thank you both for coming. So this is a great cause, and I support it fully. The language, Randy, would replenish and stuff like that, kind of structure of how they would structure it. Obviously, we hate to say anything is not a good one, but say you had 3, and that was 12 grand, and you carry over 12 for the next year, and replenish it that way. So the language of replenish, I'm kind of like up in the air with it. Obviously, the money's there, we can give it to them, but I don't understand the language where replenish keep coming back. Would this be a yearly thing for 24 grand, and then they would come back to us in a year and give them another 24 grand?
I think
Or
it's
just
a-
as they use it,
Yeah.
you add it up?
It's a function of the balance, I believe, that's what I find. And it would be simple for the committee, once the town council makes this decision, if it does so, to make this an evergreen, it would simply be a matter of the committee sending a requisition to fund the line, but to the Department of Finance. But that's how it would be done.
And then it would no longer have to come back.
Would not have to come back on an evergreen basis, right? Keep continuing to stay. But it doesn't get 24, 24, 24, 24.
Right.
It's replenished.
Replenished
It's
to
not
the
added.
24, it's a cap.
Exactly. It's not added to, it's not accretive, it's
I
replenished.
just want to get the language down right.
Right. If it was something that would be, we call it in the law, if it was something that would be multiplied, it would be accretive. This is not accretive, it's replenished.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Alex?
Thank you both for coming and explaining this, because what I read on the agenda, what I read in the document, had me wondering what was going on. So if you hadn't been here, I would have been a no vote, because I didn't understand how it could possibly match the criteria for the funding. So I'm glad you were here and explained it. Now I get it.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
And I think we have some verbiage that we need to put into the motion.
Yeah, I think Randy can help craft the motion if that's to the council.
I have a question of clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure it's not just us, Tony. You know, there's a lot of people that watch this. And I just want to make sure, you have 200 and some thousand now, and this is an evergreen type for this particular purpose, which is great.
Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't mean that you would never use the other 150 or 800, or whatever it comes out to be, for other things, such as the education and
Yes.
that type of thing that was talked about. I just want to be clear, so that people realize that this is one little aspect that to help families, but the rest is still, your committee will work on whatever you feel is needed.
Yes, ma'am. This is, I think of this as the first of many, an array of programs, an array of proposals that are going to be coming along. And we actually have categories, if you will: family support, direct assistance, education, prevention, health and, Miss Amy knows
Harm
this stuff.
reduction.
Yeah, harm reduction, these
And a
things.
lot of these priorities are backed up by the Yale School of Prevention and what they've deemed the proper priorities for the state. So that's where we pulled a lot of these topics from.
Just so everybody will feel as comfortable as they should feel. for this.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why I just want to make sure it's out there.
Our goal is to make sure we hit that whole broad spectrum of
Exactly.
categories.
Yeah, thank you.
These are from funds, these aren't tax dollars.
No,
No.
these are
So
funds from
everybody
the,
understands that out in the public.
these are funds from the opioid settlements so
These
far.
come from the settlement and funds from the opioid, not
This-
tax dollars.
To be very clear, this comes from the backs of the families that have lost their loved one. That's where this money comes from. From the pharmaceutical companies that were pushing these pills, telling these families that they were not addictive and that there was no problem. That's where these funds come from. And that's why it's important to get used on that basis.
Does anybody have any other questions? Mary Jane?
Tony, I just want to thank you for everything you have done for this community, not just publicly, working on this committee, but privately with your foundation. You have just been amazing, and I don't know what we'd do without you.
Well, thank you, Ms.
Sorry
Lumberman.
that you're in that position, but, we're very grateful to you.
Thank you, Ms. Lumberman. That means a lot to me.
So we have a motion and a second.
I'm drafting it.
We do.
I'll give it to you.
So Randy, can you?
I'm drafting it right now.
Yep,
Oh,
okay.
you are?
He's good.
I do for a living, Tony.
Good. Any other questions that we could field?
Just thank you, Tony,
Thank you,
for all
sir.
the work you guys are doing.
I appreciate your guys' support. I mean, honestly, I tell Mr. Bass all the time in private, through those early morning text messages, sorry, Mr. Bass,
He's up.
that we are really leading the state. When you look around at the proposals of the other towns, I mean, they're okay, they're all right, but this is definitely the leader. And we have been since August of 2019 when I lost Brian Cody. I met with Mr. Bass and Mr. Buckby, Mrs. Thomas, Ms. Lundgren. I met with these folks in the early days, and immediately we all started to swarm, and quickly action has taken place. We just need to understand that this is not like a broken arm. It doesn't get fixed just in a matter of days, right? The services and the supports are so important. So this is a great opportunity for us.
And the last thing that a family needs to stress out about when they've lost someone is how they're going to pay for a funeral. And that really is unbelievable.
A quick anecdote while they're talking legal mumbo jumbo.
Substance use disorder.
We came home from Brian Cody the day that we got the call, and on the counter on the island was a bill from the insurance company for $24,000. I told you about this one, Mr. Batts, when we first met in August of 2019. They wanted $24,000. I had literally just come back from seeing my dead son. Okay, and you know, we're thinking about this $24,000 insurance bill. We've got a funeral to arrange. We're still trying to understand what the heck happened. So, Ms. Francis, you're absolutely right. The hope that this will bring the comfort, the sense of community that folks will get out of this when they receive this legacy fund, it will do more than my words can ever say. Really.
And tell me why Randy's still
Mumbo jumbo one?
still doing his.
It's actually legal safe.
I get paid for this.
Can you kind of talk about the committee and the people that are on it? Obviously, Amy is our director of health. There's yourself with Brian Cody, and then who else do we have on the committee?
So we've got the MVPs in the area when it comes to this. Ms. Amy, I'll let you speak for a minute about what you do here in the area.
Absolutely. So I'm the Director of Health for the Housatonic Valley Health District. I'm very happy to be a part of this committee with Tony and the rest of our team. I think we have a great team put together, so it's great to be a part of it. Allison Fulton is a member of our team as well, and she leads Western Connecticut Coalition. She's a big leader in this topic in the area, and she has been for many years.
If you don't know Ms. Fulton, you probably need to get out more often. She really is a stalwart in this area. When I first started doing our discovery tour, my wife Tracy and I, Ms. Fulton was one of the first ones we met with. When we formed this team, you know, I was just so elated to hear the names that were on this all-star team. So.
Absolutely. And we have Mark Eccles as well, who's a leader in the area. So it's a fabulous team.
Mr. Eccles actually owns or runs a very, very great sober home. I know when people hear sober homes, there's all kinds of thoughts. But let me tell you something, sober home, that is a critical piece in the recovery process. Without sober homes, recovery a lot of times will not happen, right? This peer-to-peer networking thing that you hear about, it's powerful. And Mr. Eccles has been doing this now for many years. I have consulted with him many, many times on the hundreds and hundreds of people that we have worked with. If you don't know Mr. Eccles, Mrs. Fulton, or Miss Amy, please, introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about it. I'm hoping that they'll be at the festival, and we'll have them doing sort of a community talk and things like that. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to meet the team of all-stars.
Closer, Randy.
I'm filibustering. Is it going good?
I got it.
This is what's so important about having subcommittees for people who have knowledge of this. Like Alex just said, and Chris, we can look at a piece of paper and see somebody want 24 grand. We don't know what that means. But when you guys come in with your expertise and explain to us as a council with your expertise and tell us where this money's going, it really fuels our information to say, you know what? Because I was coming and going, what is this all about? The same thing with Chris and Alex. And when you explain it to us this way with your knowledge, it makes more sense and it makes it easier for us to say yes to something like this. So thank you and your committee for doing all this hard work.
Thank you,
And-
Mr. Scott.
Chris?
And I would say too, at least speaking for myself, I'm putting my faith in your expertise, because I will admit, I look at it and I'm like, is this going to prevent more deaths? I don't know. But if you're putting the hard work into it, you're the experts, I've got to listen to you.
Thank you for your trust in us, Mr. Cosgrove.
I think while we're waiting for Randy to finish up, Paul?
Not a question, but a comment. Last year, Sal and I both were at the Brian Cody.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming.
Spent the whole day there.
It's great.
The most sovereign and sorrowful thing that took place for me was to walk through with a bunch of pictures and names of people in this community who were in the area that passed away. I had a neighbor that lost a son many years ago from overdose. And that day I was committed to
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
your committee and your organization. It's a great event. And educational-wise, if we had everybody in this town just take that walk through those pictures, it would be enough to treat anybody. And when you be spending a dime. It's a sad day by the time you finish the walking back.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Thank you for your support. Mr. Murphy, thank you as well.
I guess Randy's got the verbiage.
See how you did here, Mr. Bass.
There we go.
See how you did.
I think maybe a couple.
Okay.
I didn't buy enough punctuation, I'll say that.
I don't, that's all right.
Thank you.
It's okay, thank you.
They don't sell
All
it,
right,
you'll be able to-
we have a motion. I made a motion. Mr. Murphy seconded the motion, and we're now going to,
Amend the motion?
we're going to fix it? We're going to amend it. We're going to fix it up, okay? So, shall we do it again? Shall we?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so I will, well, you have to remove your second?
Remove my second.
Okay, so I withdraw my motion and we have it. So now, for item number 6, I do make a motion that we move to authorize the sum of $24,000 to be funded from the opioid settlement fund and to be replenished up to said amount as expanded to assist families in need with funeral and burial expenses based on a debt-to-income analysis, so as to help families and their members prevent additional suffering, additional loss from substance abuse disorder.
Any discussion?
And just one clarification, I think I heard you say it earlier, these will be New Milford residents.
Yes, sir, that's part of the qualifications for requisites.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Did you hear that?
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Amy. Okay,
Okay,
next.
item number 7. I'd like to move that we allow the road closure. This is the Marial Center, who's asking for road closures on July 28th from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and September 28th, 2024, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. There are an additional 2 dates that are added to the Chapel Hill. The list is attached. These are all pending the traffic authority approval. Now, I don't.
Can we have a second from Al? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay. Item number 8, I'd like to move that we accept the following appointment, these are alternate appointments, by the way, for the Zoning Commission, Lynette Rigdon for a term of July 8th, 2024 to January 31st, 2026. You want to do them separately or together? Okay, there we go. Tom, all right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And Lynette's right here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Same.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thanks, Lynette.
And Randy, could I ask you, once we're completed with all these, if you could swear in
I'll
our
swear
new
them all
people?
on the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item under item 8 would be that I would move that we accept the alternate appointment to the Board of Finance, Nicholas Garofalo, term, I hope I said that right now, July 8th, 2024 to January 31st, 2028.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Okay?
Okay.
And last but not least,
opposed? Okay, thank you.
last but not least, I'd like to move that we accept the alternate for the Youth Agency Advisory Board. We have 2. Grace Levine.
And Grace is back there. Say hi to Grace.
Grace, did I say that right? Yeah. Okay, you sure? Not Vignette? That's what I wanted to say. Okay. From July 8th, 2024 to January 31st, 2028. And also Mr. Robert Greco, same term, July 8th, 2024, January 31st of 2028.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Mayor?
It doesn't say,
There was an,
These ones are not alternates.
yes, they are.
These are for the youth agency?
I have
they're
a note that says, no, not the youth, I'm sorry.
Correct.
I believe this was wasn't this in everybody's packet?
The
2
youth-
corrections for.
The zoning and the Board of Finance
Yeah.
are alternates. The Youth Agency Advisory Board are full members.
So it was a clerical change to term from appointment to alternate for those two.
You have a second? Thank you, Doug.
So,
All those in
Mr.
favor?
Greco and Grace Levine, you are not alternates, you are full members.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Randy, could you swear them in?
Is everybody here who's on this list? You swear affirm the case and immediately carry the duties of your office fairly and faithfully to the best of your ability. So help you God, and no other offense is free. You're ready to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you all for volunteering.
Thank you for
Yes.
volunteering.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much.
All right.
Item number 9, mayor's comments.
Thank you. First, the next 2 days, weather forecasting is 90s with high humidity. We're going to be opening up our cooling stations starting tomorrow and Wednesday. First here at Town Hall at 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. And then for the senior center, 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., seniors only. And then at 10 a.m. for everyone to 8 p.m. will be the New Milford Library for the 2 days. I want to congratulate the Connecticut Jade Natties. They are 40-0 so far on their teams, and they are ranked number 1 in the nation. In the nation. So amazing, amazing job to the coaches, the team, parents. Outstanding. I want to thank the Roger Sherman chapter of the DAR, Heidi Norcross, and the members of the DAR. On the 4th, they actually gifted a Bessie Ross American flag that's flying right above Town Hall as we speak. So thank you to them for doing that. Very, very appreciative. Also, I want to congratulate the New Milford Recycling Center as they now are doing their bottle redemptions. They have 10 machines that's within their facility, and they're getting a tremendous amount of people bringing in all their bottles, all different, whatever bottles you got, they'll take. And just a great new resource that our residents can use. And you don't have to be a person that's a member of recycling, could be anybody there. And they also take them where you can drop them off and they'll process them for you. And you can do it a number of ways. One, you can go in, there's a person there, pay you right down on the spot. Or you can do a card that they have, and you can accumulate the money, and you can take that money and use it for if you want to get rid of a sofa, want to get rid of a refrigerator. So you can really turn that money around and be even more, do even more recycling at not much, if at all, a cost. I want to congratulate Jim Delancey for all of his work at the VFW, the commander. He has since stepped away as the commander of the VFW, but I was there this past Saturday with Representative Buckby. We each gave him a proclamation for all his many years of hard work and service. He told us he's not going to go away, but as a VFW commander, not only here in the town, but in the state. Well, we had 2 new Eagle Scouts. I want to congratulate Christopher Gardner and his parents, Chris and Jackie. He became a new Eagle Scout. I want to thank Scoutmaster Sudwitcher, Brieger, Assistant Scoutmasters Ken Winkelson and Verba for being involved as they always are, so it's great to see. Our second scout that was also there at another one was Evan Lovejoy, and this was a few days prior to this one. And congratulations to Evan and to his parents, Todd and Donna. So, as I said, we have so many new Eagle Scouts now. I can't believe how many we have. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And thank you to the Scoutmasters for their continuing bringing those people forward. Also want to thank our DPW team, the New Milford Police Department, Fire Department, ambulance. These past storms have been rolling in, had many trees that were down, a lot of roads. At one time, we had 61 roads blocked that needed to get unblocked. Also want to thank our Eversource linesmen and women. As one of the bigger storms, we had over 2,000 residents that were without power, and with all their hard work, we were able to get people back on as fast as possible. It's just a commitment to all of their hard work.
Sir, Mayor, Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to also thank the DPW at that incident, their quick and very thorough cleanup the next day
Absolutely.
of the, I call it blowout off of Upland Road of gravel that ended up on my property and the roadside. I think it was at least, I counted 2 trucks and sweepers.
Heck yeah.
So they did a fantastic job, and I tell people, it wasn't because I was on town council, it was so quick. I think that's the way they do the work.
Absolutely. They do a great yeoman's job, for sure.
Mr. Mayor, did you say 61?
61 at one point. Yep. At the height of it. I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30. And so you had our,
They don't have 61 roads.
yeah, and we had our, DPW crews out, Eversource was out, clearing roads with, trees down with wires, because that's the only way we can clear them is with them. And it was just a big, huge effort. Amazing work they do. A couple things on some new businesses. Dairy Queen's going to open at the end of July, which is good news. And then there was a report of Five Guys being closed. They're not closed, they're open. So if you get a chance, you're near Walmart Plaza, they are open for business. Yeah, they refurbish the store and they're open.
Social media.
Well, they actually had a sign on the door.
So, and then for some Milford Police Department statistics, I talked to Chief Cerruto. We continue to work on traffic enforcement. So motor vehicle stops. This time in the year 2023, we had done 1,032. This year in 2024, we've done 2,297. That's an increase of 1,265, or 122%. Motor vehicle accidents in 2023 were at 450. 77 were in parking lots. This year we're at 448. 72 in parking lots was a decrease in 2. Though we don't want to have any accidents, kudos to our police department, because the summertime is when you see really a growth rate when it comes to motor vehicles. You have new drivers on the road. You have a lot of people who don't live in town that are driving through our town, going on vacation destinations or destinating their staycation here in New Milford. So a yeoman's job to them, and we'll continue to provide the updates. We're going to be, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, getting our traffic audit from Connecticut DOT as they came in when it comes to Route 7. As soon as we get that, I'll be bringing that forward to the town council. And then there's been some conjecture on social media about car break-ins that have been in the area. I talked to Chief Cerruto, and kind of some of the things, best practices. First and foremost, if you have a car, you think somebody is breaking into your car or is on your property, please call 911. That's one of the most important things you can do. Call 911. What else you can do? Lock your car door. Second thing you can do, take your keys out of your car. A lot of these thefts are people leave their keys in their car, they leave their cars unlocked, and they also leave their valuables in there. Rolex watch could be left in there, purses, all sorts of different things. It is super important that, I know it may take another minute or two, but really, take all your valuables out and bring them into where you're going. Another thing, if you can, park near a light, which is very important. Or if there's a light there, invest in a few dollars and have the light working just come on automatically. And why that's very important, there's a lot of social media posts by some people thinking that a lot of our new residents that have now come into New Milford are the ones that are causing the actual break-ins. That's the farthest from the truth. What's happening is we have some youth gangs from cities near the town of New Milford that come in. And what they do is they go and they flip on the car, lights come on, The police have seen it, they just walk away. The door's locked, they move on. But if your door is open and you have no lights on, they're coming in that car and they're looking around. And what happens is the car that they bring to get to New Milford is usually a stolen car from somewhere else. And then they go and dump it after they've already gone through other people's cars. So it's not the residents or the new residents of New Milford. It is gangs. And the unfortunate 3 or 4 that we may be getting, and talking to the chief, in some of these other areas, it's 15 or 20. So the more we as a community can be self-reliant, can be vigilant and self-responsible, and look, I know, sometimes we forget about locking our cars, and we're up into the rural areas of town, and it stinks that you have to think of these things. But if these youngsters think it's going to be very difficult to come into New Milford and it's a waste of their time, they're not going to come around. They'll go into the other areas where cars are unlocked, people leave their stuff in there, and they're going to go steal. So we're going to be pushing out more information. I spoke to the chief on getting more information. That's why it's super important. If you do have someone trying that, please call the police. That way we can, through Notify New Milford, alert the neighborhoods so the neighborhood can kind of take more of a watch. And if you see something that's not in your neighborhood that looks like it shouldn't be there, please call 911. Super important. Randy, at the last town council meeting, I know Mayor Gambino talked a little bit about PFAS and about the litigation, and we asked Randy to kind of talk a little bit about that. So Randy's here at the next meeting tonight, talking a little bit about it. Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, I won't be little.
Oh.
This is a serious project. I took a look at the complaints that Mayor Gambino pointed out to us. It's a multi-count complaint filed by a very, very reputable law firm, Silver Gallup Title from Stanford. I know them. The lawsuit claims that there are right now 3 plaintiffs.
And Randy, just for edification, right? Who are the plaintiffs, and then who are they suing?
Yeah.
So
the plaintiffs are Bethany DePaul, Arlene Quaranta, and Meredith Quaranta. They are suing Kimberly Clark alone.
And the town has no interest
town cannot
in either
have that. That was researched. I researched that. The town does not have standing to bring a lawsuit. However, I'll get to this later, because I spoke with about a half hour with the lead attorney on the case. The lawsuit seeks class certification. Class certification simply means that there are people who are in the same straits as the plaintiff claims they're in. That would be all citizens of Connecticut who are or were owners of property located in New Milford or surrounding towns whose land and water supply have been contaminated with detectable levels of PFAS chemicals. PFAS it's a class of chemicals. There's multiple chemicals that are within that class, as defined in this lawsuit, as a result of Kimberly Clark's improper use and disposal of PFAS chemicals during the class period. That's for people who are making property damage claims for loss of value of their property. And there's a medical monitoring class, and those would be all persons who resided at a home in New Milford, Connecticut, or surrounding towns who ingested PFAS-contaminated water, such that PFAS accumulated in their bodies and tissue, or any natural child born to a resident who met these criteria at the time of the child's birth during the class period. What this means is that there are allegations that are being made, and there's testing that was done. In the lawsuit, they did not tell us who did the testing. But there was testing done starting in November of 23 with water testing of these 3 individuals' wells, or 2 individuals' wells, Arlene Quaranta and Bethany DePaul. And they showed detectable levels of PFAS above the EPA standards. The problem is EPA standards are a little squirrely. They're not sure we're going to end up with that. That's not their problem here. What they're alleging is that the stack emissions from Kimberly Clark over the decades created an atmosphere, fall to the earth, and contamination of groundwater. They took other samples at Addis Park, I think Carlson Grove. They didn't identify Carlson Grove. They identified a park off of Route 202. Must be Carlson. And Lovers Leap Park. and they found 6 inches below the surface soil samples that were contaminated above the detectable standards of PFAS.
Randy, can I just ask, when you say they, you mean
They
the
mean the plaintiffs.
litigants? Okay.
Yeah, the plaintiff's experts.
Wasn't an expert.
Right. Pardon?
They had an expert do this?
I presume they did. They didn't identify
Oh,
who the testing was, because testing is very, testing
Yes.
requires certain protocols. In this case, they've made a 7-count complaint. In federal court, it's called a claim. In state court, they're called counts. There's 7 counts, including nuisance, public nuisance, regular tort, the land, what they call a tort to land, because of the loss of value of property. Unfair trade practices, Connecticut unfair trade practice violation, things of that nature. What they're seeking medical monitoring of individuals who might have been exposed to this through this process. They're requesting filtering that will be paid for by Kimberly Clark of individual homes that have been affected by it. The good news about this, if there's any good news, is this is remediable. It's my understanding, based upon the research that I've done, and on Wednesday of last, and the discussion that I had with a physician and with the plaintiff's attorney, is that this can be filtered. This can be taken care of with filtration. Very expensive, a couple $1,000s per filter, and he thinks that one of these gentlemen thinks the price is coming down, but that's something that can be handled. The big deal is medical monitoring. All the plaintiffs in this case, there's only 3 of them again at this point, have had they've had exposure, but their cells are subclinically undetectable. So there's nothing that their cells show, although there's been cellular changes that have not resulted in a manifestation of disease yet. There's no allegation, and when I spoke with the attorney, there's no medical records that show that there's been cellular mutation or cellular damage, but that's a natural progression of a disease process that's been explained to me by a physician that I went through. So subclinical simply means there's no manifestation yet. However, the claim is for exposure, and the concern and the fear and the potential changes in physiology because of this. The big thing that they're looking for here, besides attorney's fees, because Kimberly Clark would pay the attorney's fees based upon the class action lawsuit, is that they want medical monitoring of anybody who could have been exposed or was exposed. That's going to be a difficult task to determine. And they also want, of course, filtration. That's easier to determine. All of the affected properties, as you know, as you could probably tell, are east and north of KC. In other words, that's the prevailing winds. But right now, under the rules of federal civil procedure, what they're seeking is a mediation potential, which is good news. Kimberly Clark, according to this attorney, anecdotally, I haven't talked to the KC lawyer, he didn't call me back, the KC would like a mediation. I believe, and this is my conclusion, nobody told me this, but I'm reading between the lines, I believe they would like the town to be somewhat involved as a mediator or in the mediation because of the relationship that the town has with Kimberly Clark. The town has a great relationship with Kimberly Clark. We would not be plaintiffs in the case because we're not suing them. We don't have any standing to sue them. We don't own a water company. But the thought, the discussions that they had, unbeknownst to me, because I'm not in this case, was that perhaps the town could be a facilitator in trying to resolve this. I'll talk to you about that in another time.
And Randy, one more time, I just want to ask you, who's the they?
That's the plaintiff's lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah. Having said that, right now, the town has no standing to do anything because the town, again, doesn't own a water supply and doesn't have any control over the water supplies. Whether or not there becomes funds available regarding state funds or federal funds to help our citizens with testing, that's different than this. Even though they're trying to resolve it in a mediated way, this is an adversary process. This is not requesting a grant from the federal government or state. The bottom line here is that the plaintiffs in this case have not been physically harmed yet. Subclinical manifestations, subclinical non-manifestation of cellular changes happen to us every day. That's what I learned from this physician that I consulted. They have to do this with the aging process. But when it turns into disease, that's when the heavy situation comes, because then you have an actionable personal injury loss. Here, they're really looking for monitoring, medical monitoring, and they're looking for remediation. I'm told, I haven't found any documents on this, but I'm told that, I have found documents on authority on well water or water filtration, but I had not found any information concerning what they call stack scrubbing, emission scrubbing. I haven't found anything on that regarding this.
So Randy, question. The cellular change, I also have, once this started, I started going down the rabbit hole and reading everything. Cellular change does happen to all of us as we age.
Right.
And the fact that it's happened and the fact that someone may find a deleterious change, whatever that might mean to a doctor, that still has to be proven that it is caused by whatever people are saying. So, could have been any number of things.
That's the issue of what we call proximate causation.
Right.
You have
How
to
many
prove-
of these lawsuits, because this has been in the news and been in people's minds for a while, how many lawsuits have there been like this?
There's been a number of them, but not to the extent of entire communities, except in West Virginia. There was a big case in West Virginia some years ago regarding DuPont Chemical. The difference was there, however, they were effluenting this material into water.
Right.
And it was a horrible situation. And I think they paid ended up paying $370 million in that case. But that was kind of a different paradigm, if you will. It wasn't stacked emissions. It was actually direct dumping emissions. It's similar to what Uniroyal did to the Naugatuck River, only with less toxic chemicals, if you will. Your Honor?
Thank you.
Yep.
A couple things. One, can anybody just come into a town or a state park and dig up soil samples?
You did it. I don't think it was any, I think it was probably a teaspoon in a cup. I don't think it was any big deal.
Or it's 6 inches?
Yeah, 6 inches, right?
Yeah, more so. The other thing is, so in a lawsuit like this, I also start to read about all this stuff, and we find out that the food supply is also highly tainted.
I'm sorry, I didn't...
Food supply.
Oh, absolutely.
Coffee, white rice.
Absolutely.
They found, I think I read an article in the UK, 85% of all the strawberries they found in the supermarkets had PFAS in it. Oh, even if somebody does get a disease, how in the heck are you going to figure out the source when it's so much?
I agree, and that's a matter of proof that they'd have to, it's their burden. We don't, again, the town's not being sued here. The town didn't do anything wrong. Right. I mean, and this has been going on for a long time, and they never notified the use of PFAS. They didn't know about its toxicity.
And Randy, just so people that are watching, people in the audience that may be becoming more familiar for PFAS. So again, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but I think some people still try to create their own narrative. The water is controlled by whom?
Well, if your well water is controlled by you. If it's a public water supply, it's by a private company.
And who's responsible for the oversight of water?
Department of Public Utilities Control. And that would be the vendor of the water, if you will. There's reporting requirements. There's a number of private little companies that serve smaller communities. They're all subject to review by the state.
And for private wells,
There's none, other than when you drill it or when you expand it. Then you have to go to the Department of Public Health. But I don't think that any Department of Public Health tests for PFAS. It's bacteria, coliform, and it's elements, it's minerals. Salt, sodium.
and the town has no standing in water.
No, we don't own a water company.
Well, some people are conjecturing that we do.
Well, you know what? Then they got to read the law.
Right.
Because that's not the law.
So really, Randy,
Mayor?
we shouldn't even be talking about this.
Well, because it involves a major lawsuit against a major company in our town.
Have they asked
And
us to be involved?
Bob,
Kimberly
they asked today. No, Kimberly Park is not asked.
Okay.
But I was instructed to get to the bottom of
Remember
it.
Mayor Gambino had asked for more information, so.
Since this was from the stacks, and it's been landing on the land, what is this problem going to be for the people that grow fruits and vegetables or have cattle on the land where they're feeding on stuff that's growing in the 6-inch soil layer?
Sure. I don't know what the answer to that is biologically or horticulturally. But the fact is that they got to prove that it's related to this. And don't forget, I also found out that Cape Cod, Truro, Massachusetts, is one of the biggest depositions of all types of pollutants in the country. And it comes from all over the country. So when you have the prevailing wind west to east, that's the prevailing wind here. I don't mean to be a meteorologist. I just learned this stuff last week. I'm not Dr. Frank Field, if you remember him.
Yes, I do.
But what I learned is that they call that multiple antagonists, is what they call it. So and again, I'm not a class action lawyer. I never professed to be. If I were to do that, I'd rather be a dentist. But the fact is that they're a highly competent law firm, really good lawyers, and I had a good discussion with the lead counsel today. They have to prove it, and they have to prove it by fair preponderance of the evidence. It's not criminal. No matter what anybody says, this is not a town issue. It is a private lawsuit, but it involves our town. That's why I was instructed to get to the bottom of it. We're not involved in it. We're not a party. We have no standing to be involved in it. We don't own a water company, and we're not a defendant. We didn't create the problem. But you're right. Evidence has to be put forth that it was caused, or more likely than not, caused by Kimberly Clark. And by the way, very well drafted complaint. The mayor has it in his office if you want to take a look at it. It's 40 pages, so I didn't copy the whole thing. I didn't think you want to read it at night and go to sleep.
One quick question, Randy. You had mentioned during your statement that because we had a good relationship with KC, we'd be a moderator. I think we should stay far away from that.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's a private law.
Well, yeah, it's not our case. It's not our
But
case.
you had mentioned because we were in good standing with KC that the town
I
should be a
think-
moderator.
They would ask,
They would probably want us to be, is what I mean.
they'll ask you,
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
they'll ask.
And don't forget, in fairness, in all fairness, it's a plaintiff's case, it's not our case.
Right.
And it's an adversary situation, even though they're going to try to resolve it. And I'm sure they will resolve it. But it's an adversary situation that can be fixed. It's, if you will, there's a great legal term called fixable.
Right.
It can be fixed. It can be fixed with...
Which is a plus.
It's a big deal, right?
Hey, Mary Jane.
So, Randy, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I read in that, because I read that complaint too, in the whole case, and that the water was tested by the same company that was recommended by the town in the Milford.
Maybe it was,
town.
but
It was.
November
Yeah.
23rd, they did
And
the
then the
test.
soil was also tested by a certified reputable
Yeah, independent lab,
in Massachusetts, correct?
right.
Okay.
They weren't identified. I don't know who they are.
Okay, well, I thought they did identify it.
I didn't see it in the complaint anyway.
Pretty sure they did.
But we do know they have very specific types of people.
Well, this law firm
Done
is
legitimately.
top shelf. They're not going to do anything.
Right. The other thing is, I think people need to keep in mind, when you're talking about the cellular level, that let's remember about asbestos and how asbestos was used in everything. And it's in our school buildings, it's in the old buildings, it's everywhere. Very acceptable product for years and years and years. And there were people discussing, a long time ago about the potential detrimental effects of asbestos. And we now know about asbestos, mesothelioma. Asbestos is a really bad thing. If you have it in your house, you've got to get it out, or in your buildings, because it is very dangerous to your lungs. So, I think what people have a tendency to sort of, poo-poo the research that's starting beginning to come out on PFAS, and in some of the medical literature, it's actually showing that it's they're finding it in coronary arteries, that it's lodging in people's systems, it's lodging in livers, it's lodging in kidneys, and in some of our, vascular system. So, I think we need to be very, very careful about, saying that it's harmless, it's not going to hurt people, because I think there's a lot we have to learn.
Did somebody in this room say we thought it was harmless or not going to hurt people?
Well, I'm just saying, just because...
I know, but we have a lot of people going to watch this, Mary Jane. Let's be a little specific.
I have the floor.
Just be specific so people
I'm
understand.
just saying that when you're talking about something on the cellular level, and this is a product that, they're starting to do a lot of research on, and there's going to be a lot more evidence coming out. So people just need to be aware of the whole situation.
I'm trying to make it, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yes,
that's
make you aware.
Right, exactly. So, we have people that are really concerned about their water and their soil, and it's not just, look at Sunny Valley, look at the wells in Sunny Valley. So we all know that Aquarian, most people know that Aquarian owns the water here, the water company. And I still feel that the town could put some pressure on them to put in some kind of a better filter system to filter it all out. So, because there is a solution to the whole thing, and it is filtering.
Well,
It
we
is
would
putting
perhaps, though, when they figure out exactly what kind of filtering
Well,
they
so
should
what are we
do.
waiting for 20 years?
Well,
and
you
then
know-
everybody's, sick with PFAS?
But Mary Jane, I'm going to mention one thing, and you'll recognize this. We're about the same age here. Tefal, they burn pans. Everybody know those? They're probably in your house. You know what Tefal really is?
Teflon.
Teflon.
And it's PFAS, at its nice and purest beginning. And they made a lot of money by telling you, don't do anything to compromise that surface. Don't use a metal spatula. And they'll still tell you that, and they're still selling them. Now, I'm not saying I endorse that, but that's just an example of how this is so ingrained in everything. And of course the town wants, but to say that we want to help with filtering or something, we don't even know what kind of filtering.
Yeah, we do know what kind of filtering.
No, we don't. We don't.
Aquarian knows.
I don't know that. I
They
don't
do
know.
know. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
But as I said, also it's in the food supplies. You take care of the water,
Right.
but you go out and you buy some salmon.
Yep.
You buy some oysters. It's in all of that. Like I said, it's
It is.
85% strawberries. It's
We're in trouble.
It's-
We're going to be in trouble.
Just for your
Andy
edification.
had mentioned is, it's not an isolated, it's global.
Oh, it's just worldwide.
I probably know a lot
So
more
it's
than you
not
know
just an
about
isolated incident here, it's everywhere.
And sadly, the older you are, the more you have of it in your system.
You're rotting meat.
So,
Already absorbed.
You know, one thing you might, when I looked it up, there was an article, I think it might have been Lancet. Lancet is one of them, I read a number of articles. There's one team hypothesized that there's not one person on Earth
doesn't have it.
Right.
who does not have an element of amount of PFAS in their system.
dogs,
So-
cats, babies, everybody.
Everybody, everything. So the fact is that it's obviously a serious situation. There's some literature, by the way, you might know this, Mary Jane. There's some literature that says as 1 part per billion is a contaminated amount. 1 part per billion.
I thought it was trillion.
That's like impossible to calculate.
Right, that's a drought.
Yeah, in
well,
Kettle Lake.
the EPA standards are like 4 parts per trillion.
Right.
There it is.
Right, that's even more, right.
Yeah.
In any event, that's my research.
Appreciate
Again, I
that.
spoke with the attorney. We're not in this case. This is nothing the town did. This is not the town's fault.
Correct.
This was created by either Kimberly Clark or DuPont Chemical or Dow or General Motors, and it's all coming this
And you'll
way.
let us know if Casey asks for help.
Yeah, well, Casey asked us that. But the other thing is that I don't know how many people he's going to get in the class. So there'll have to be a number of people in the class, and I'll report that to you once I find that out. But that's what I know, that's what the research that I've done, and I have a good open line. I know these guys, it's Silver, Gold, Keitel, as it goes forward.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate the update.
You're welcome.
And-
Very interesting, by the way.
I film it.
And a couple of other things left on mayor's comments.
Okay.
First, I want to thank everybody that came, that were here at our town meeting for the Lanesville Firehouse. So thank you for everybody coming. and that was approved, so moving forward, so thank you to everybody. Got a lot of great events that are going to be coming here in town, starting with this Friday. We're having at El Contencito, I'm probably not pronouncing it correct.
Rinconcito.
Thank you. They're doing the Senior Center Summer Luau is going to be there. I believe there's still some tickets available. Harrybrook Park is doing their trivia night that night as well. Then on Saturday at 9 a.m. to noon is the Farmers Market. Music from 10 to noon is Dan Sawyer. We are currently looking at either Saturday or Sunday for our fireworks celebration. I'll keep everybody posted to that, weather dependent, obviously, with a hurricane that's now a tropical storm moving up the Mississippi River area that way.
It stays west of us.
Yeah, absolutely. July 18th, 6:30 p.m. on Bank Street is Rock the Block. Nashville Drive is going to be performing. If you love country music, they do a fabulous job. Very well attended, great. Bring a lawn chair, relax. There's a lot of stores you can visit. You got a lot of ice cream choices down there, restaurants. Just make it a great time.
Nice.
Then on July 20th, Farmers Market, again, 9 to noon. At 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., the Litchfield Artisan Festival is happening, and that was very well received last year. It's going to be bigger this year as well, so thank you to the Whitmans. Also on the 20th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Pettibone is Vintage Mania. If you like comics, baseball cards, those old, Godzilla statues, all sorts of stuff, autographs, they have it. And thank you to Buck and his team for bringing back Vintage Mania. Had a very good first one a few months ago.
Buck did that?
Yep. Then we've got at Harrybrook Park, their golf tournament is on the 22nd. They have I guess they tee off at 10 a.m., opens 8:30 p.m. or 8:30 a.m. So I believe there's still some spots left over for that. July 25th, at the Senior Center, they're doing the greatest sitcoms of all time. So if you're a sitcom fan, check out the Senior Center. Before that, you get a great lunch at the Senior Center. July 27th, 9 a.m. to noon on the green, again, Farmers Market. Music from 10 a.m. to noon is going to be Charm City Exiles. Also on the 27th, 8 a.m. is the New Milford Road Race. They do a great job. On July 27th, 28th, and 29th, we brought back with the Lions Club the Carnival, so that will be at Pettibone. So it'll be a great event, especially for youngsters. On August 3rd is the Big Jeep thing. And then the first Edward Kincaid concert series by our New Milford Commission on the Arts is 7 p.m. is Nona et Stera.
On the 3rd?
On the 3rd of August. We got a lot more stuff, and I'll just keep, during our meetings, talk about that. Chris?
Mayor, if I could add, on July 20th, the Litchfield County Irish American Club will be hosting our annual Irish Road Bowling Tournament.
Nice.
Which you should come
Sunny
out.
Valley Lane and Sunny Valley Road.
Cheers on.
Hosted at the Abbey Restaurant, and it's sold out for teams, so we're totally sold on that. But if you want to come out, the proceeds are going to benefit a local family in need. So all the proceeds go to that. But if you want to come out, see what it's all about, we'll have raffles and 50/50s and that sort of thing. But anybody in the public is welcome to come out.
Celebrate in the Abbey after, cheer us on and celebrate in the Abbey.
Yep. Councilwoman Francis is an annual participant, so.
You better get the temperature down, though.
And lastly, under Mayor's comments, as we thanked Mike Sinello for his years of great work here. He did great. Now we have Sarah, who's back there. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, guys.
And
Welcome,
Mike,
Sarah.
and Mike Food Media. They're doing our production now, which is great. Can't thank them enough. And for those that don't know, they also do the Board of Education's meetings. So we kind of piggybacked off of them. And voila. So thank you, Sarah. Appreciate all the good work you're doing tonight and will be doing in the future.
Yes.
And that's what I got.
All set? Okay, so item number 10, we do want to have some discussion, I believe, and an update from the New Milford Economic Development Corporation about our Brownsfield grant.
So Ole If you could come on up.
And who else?
And Dale.
Yeah.
And Dale as well. And while Ollie's preparing, just so those that are watching and here on the town council as well, is some of these things that we're talking about, whether it's doing the DECD brownfield grant remediation, talking about riverfront revitalization, right? This has been going on for many, many years. We're just trying to continue to move the ball forward and implement it. You may have heard on some social sites that this was done like last week. That, this just came up all of a sudden.
Busy last week?
Yeah.
Exactly, I was just saying. Again, this is stuff that's been going on for quite a long time. And we're continuing to move the projects forward. Yeah.
I think when it started, Tom didn't have any gray hair. Pardon? You didn't have gray hair when this started. No, not at all.
Thank you, Lynette.
Bye.
Well, while we're working on the logistics here, let me take the opportunity as the chairman of the corporation board of directors, first to thank you, Mayor and Madam Vice Chair and council people and townspeople for the opportunity of being here this evening. And I would be remiss as the chairman of the board not to congratulate the mayor and his team for the outstanding achievement of a AAA bond rating. In my past life, I was the chief recruitment officer for the state of Connecticut, recruiting on the national and international level. And one of my hole cards, if you've ever played poker in your life, but one of my hole cards was the outstanding credit rating that the state of Connecticut always held. And for us as the town of New Milford to have a AAA bond rating is truly outstanding. So congratulations again, Mayor and your whole team for that achievement. Okay, we'll give it a go. So, we're here this evening to give you a comprehensive update on where we are in the process of the accomplishments that we have up to date concerning the Brownfields Assessment Grant. Before we get into that, though, I'd like to give a quick reminder of who the corporation is and what we do. We do have some new council members that haven't heard our little story before, and I'd like to do that for the townspeople also. About the corporation. We were founded in 2010 under then Mayor Murphy and revigorated under Mayor Bass in his first term starting in 2017, and actually really fired up in 2018. Mayor Bass, I think it was in March of 2018, Mayor Bass, that you and I sat down and you asked me that fateful question if I would like to be the chair of the corporation.
Yes, sir.
And I said yes at the time, and we've been going forward with that since then. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and thanks to a vote of the town council, we are also designated under Chapter 8-188 as the town's designated development agency, which gives us many powers, many of which we haven't exercised as of yet. The grant was actually one of the first times we've been able to exercise that power under Chapter 8-188. We have a 24-member board of directors. We are all volunteers. 4 of the members are ex officio. They are the only politicians really on the board. Those 4 ex officio members are the mayor, the economic development director, the chairman of the zoning board, and the chairman of the planning commission. The other members are all high-level members with experience in business, industry, health, education, and government. The full board meets quarterly in person. The executive committee meets every month virtually. You might ask, why have a corporation for economic development at all? This slide talks about the grant itself and the eligible applicants. And the reason that's on there gives us a reason for why having an economic development corporation is important for a community. It's actually in place in many communities to do projects that a town can't or doesn't really want to do for itself. And you would say, well, why wouldn't a town want to do a project by itself? One of the reasons is why we're here tonight. Because when you look at this slide, the last bullet, entities responsible for the contamination are ineligible to apply for the grant that we are presently administering. So the corporation was able to apply for that grant, and that was thanks to a vote by the council authorizing us to apply on the town's behalf. So a corporation, a development corporation, were not formed to shield the public eyes from a project. We are formed to shield the taxpayers from the liabilities that may be associated with a project. Think about that. Why would a town want to own polluted properties? Think of the liabilities associated with that. Some manufacturing site that owners just walk away from, that now the town is left with. Schools that you no longer use that are filled with environmental problems. Why does the town want to maintain ownership of that? So, and then when you look at that last bullet, the town can't even apply for some sorts of grants on the federal and state level because those properties, town-owned properties, they are the polluter, and they're ineligible from applying for that. So the corporation is there to be able to step in and do that application. So we're not shielding the taxpayers' eyes from a project. We're shielding the taxpayers' eyes from the liabilities of some projects. We also serve as a fiduciary agent for some other public organizations. Like we've served as fiduciary agent for the Riverfront Revitalization Committee. So we're able to accept donations and funds on their behalf to run the Riverfront project. We've also served as a fiduciary agent for Julie Bailey and her organization when they were doing cleanup along the riverways. So we have other functions that we perform as a development corporation. So now let's talk about the grant. The grant was to look at to do the brownfield assessment for the Public Works facility, the grounds that the Public Works Department is now situated on, which is 6 and 20 Youngsfield Road and 72 Housatonic Avenue. So in September of 2023, the town council, recognizing that they were not able to apply as a town for the grant, voted to authorize the corporation to apply for the grant, and that was upon the recommendation of the Riverfront Revitalization Committee. So with that authorization, we applied for the grant, and in December of 2023, we were awarded a grant of $200,000 to assess all those properties associated with the Public Works Garage. What I'm doing is, and you're going to see a lot of dates, you're going to hear a lot of dates, and that's to show you the meticulous, open, and fair process that the corporation took to get to the final point of finally selecting a licensed environmental professional to perform the assessment of the properties. I'm going to take you through that process, and then I'm going to turn the podium over to Mr. Dale Krupp, who's our grants administrator, who will talk to you about what exactly the activities of the grant are going to be. So you can see in December, we were announced recipients of the grant. In January, we put out an RFQ for a grants administrator because the grant required us to go out and advertise for a grants administrator. In February, we hired Community Resource Management, which is, his CEO is Mr. Krupp, who's with me this evening. With his help, we developed an RFP for the licensed environmental professional. In March, we put out the RFP. We published it in the Waterbury Republican. We also put it online. We set it up on our website online so we could reach as wide an audience as we possibly could. So on March 18th, we published it in the Waterbury Republican. On the 5th of April, we had a site walk with the interested parties who might be interested in bidding on the proposal. We had 4 companies show up for that site walk we made with Jack Healy, our Public Works Director, and a member of his staff. On the 22nd, well, we gave people till the 15th to ask questions about the site walk or any questions they had about the proposal. Now, when they asked questions, nobody received an individual answer. All the answers were posted on our website and answered on our website. No company received an individual answer. So they had till the 15th of April to give us their questions. They were answered on the website. On the 22nd, we had an opening that was both live in this room and also on the internet. So they could watch virtually or they could show up live. We had 5 submissions at that time. The companies were TRC, SLR, Weston and Sampson, GeoQuest, and Fuss and O'Neill. So 5 very reputable companies bid on our proposal. On April 25th, the Corporation Board passed a resolution authorizing me to sign for DECD funding. It's a formal resolution that DECD sent to us along with a myriad of other documents. So you could see we got the grant in December, we were awarded the grant. We didn't get the paperwork from DECD till April. So in April, we got the paperwork from them, got the authorization of the resolution from our corporate board. I forwarded that to our corporation counsel, Mitch Melnick, for his review. In May, we'll get to May here. In May, our selection committee, which were some very experienced people, a vice chairman of an industry company, O&G. I guess you probably recognize that name. General counsel of a development corporation. So we had some pretty, what I consider very experienced people on our selection committee. They reviewed all the proposals, and we decided not to cull any of them. We interviewed all 5 companies. We came down to 2 that we thought were the best, and decided to start with the one who was the lowest bidder. We consulted with both the purchasing agent for the town and also with DECD as to how we should approach, the selection process, and decided to start with the lowest bidder. And in that regard, we sent our grants administrator, Mr. Krupp, to negotiate with the lowest bidder. Our corporation secretary, who is also your secretary here, Stephanie Barksdale, she recorded that entire negotiation, so we have all of that. And upon the review and recommendation of Mr. Krupp, the selection committee decided to go with that first pick and recommend to the executive committee of the corporation that Fuss & O'Neill would be our choice as a licensed environmental professional to provide the services for us. And on the 27th of June, the executive committee approved Fuss & O'Neill as the licensed environmental professional that we would hire to do the work for us. And on the 7th of July, we began contract negotiations with Fuss & O'Neill, and we'll be sending those documents to Mitch Melnick, our corporation counsel. So that's where we are today. Any questions on the process to get us this far? If not, I'll turn the podium over to Mr. Krupp, and he will talk about the technical aspects of the grant. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Last time I saw you was in the fall, 23, when we were applying. You passed the resolution. There were a couple new members, so I'm going to go back a little bit to the beginning. The funds, as Ole said, come from the State Department of Economic and Community Development through their Brownfield program. I'm a grants consultant, but I'm also a Brownfield consultant, and I also run a Brownfield land bank as an aside, but it may become part of the story much later on. But all this, I've done many projects like this and have actually implemented many brownfield remediation projects. So, as Ole said, the $200,000 grant was the highest amount you could apply for an assessment grant. The state also offers remediation grants at a later point in time, but they don't give out any remediation grants unless you have this assessment work in place. All the funding pays for all of the expenses that come out of what I'm about to explain, so no town funds are required. I always like to point that out because that's always something that's of concern. So as Ole said, this is, once Fuss & O'Neill is on board, and that contract negotiation will probably be wrapped up in a couple weeks. Just to color the picture just a little bit more, Ole said that the corporation passed the resolution in June or May, I forget when it was. There's also about 14 documents to go with that. All of that has been sent to the state attorney general, and then the state commissioner of DECD have to sign off on that. But right now, the corporation can encumber funds that will be reimbursed by the grant. So they don't have to wait for all that to happen. So the scope of work is to take a look at the 3 parcels that were outlined, and I know Lee was going to talk about the riverfront project, revitalization project after me. But this is all related to figuring out what the town's going to do with this property once Public Works moves over to the new site in 2026-ish. Talked to Jack a little bit today about that, and I know that's an ongoing thing. So, what are you going to do with that property? You need to know what's there to kind of figure out and inform yourselves what the best pathway is. So usually people speak in terms, and I know the public is watching this, so get into not too many weeds, but talk about what Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 means for just a minute. So basically, this grant will fund Fuss & O'Neill to do Phase 1 assessments of all 3 properties, because even though they're all part of Public Works, because they're separate parcels, you need a separate phase one. A phase one is basically nothing more than environmental title search. They go to the state fire marshal records to see if there was ever an event there, a spill. They look at the town's records. They go through all kinds of records, insurance claims, any kind of things that they can dig up, no pun intended. They don't dig any holes at this point in time. Once they figure out what the history is, maybe there was a spill somewhere, or maybe there was an underground storage tank that was abandoned or something like that, then they go to a phase two, which is really to dig holes, do test pits, scoop the dirt, put some monitoring wells in to test the groundwater. And because the site's basically upgradient from riverfront, from the Housatonic River, they check everything not only on the site, but they look to see if there's any flow off the site, any potential contamination that could affect plans. In reading some of the material on Riverfront, there's potential for undergrounding utilities on that road. So you want to know what's under the ground. So the phase two really is to look at where the potential hotspots are based on the history in the phase one. Probably we'll end up with a phase two on all three properties. Two of them are together, and one is the main headquarters. It's number 6, I believe. Phase 3 really means is to quantify the extent of whatever they find in the phase 2. So if they find nothing really on a site when they dig the holes, you don't do a phase 3. So, but if you do find stuff, which you're going to always find stuff where they have vehicles and hydraulic lifts and things like that, the phase 3 is going to tell you the extent, the depth, the width, how many cubic yards has to be removed, and the cost, most importantly, is going to tell you the cost. Because ultimately, whether you have to apply for it, or a developer has to apply for it, or a separate organization has to apply for it, you have to know approximately what the cost is. This is separate from putting it out to bid. This is separate from prevailing wage, depending on who's going to actually do the project. So this grant is going to pay for phase 1 for all 3 properties, likely a phase 2 for all 3 properties, and potentially a phase 3 for at least the one or maybe all the properties. But the costs of this are based on a plethora of experience that I have and other environmental consultants have. All that's included in the grant. The other thing that will come out of the grant will be a draft, what they call remedial action plan. Once you know the cost, you want to have a plan to show the state how you're going to get rid of the contaminated stuff. In this case, it could be dirt, it could be groundwater monitoring, attenuation, treating it, more than likely just dirt, but we don't know. The other part of the grant scope is going to be an evaluation of all the buildings on the site. You have a lot of metal buildings that are part of the public works. You probably have asbestos in, some aspects of the building, certainly in the roof materials and what they call the mastic, which is the glue on the top of the building. You might have something in the windows. These are old buildings, so you're going to find some stuff in the building materials. Very easy to get rid of, but costs money. So we want to know what's in those buildings. Chances are whatever happens on the site will mean the demolition of all the buildings on the site. And I went there today to be reminded how linear the whole thing is. It goes down that road pretty far. So I spent a little time with Jack today, and I touring the building. It was also 100 degrees, so didn't walk around too much, but whenever you're on a contaminated site, when it's hot, it's down. Anyway, so the grant is going to cover all of that stuff. The remedial action plan will be in general format, because until you really know, and I know Lee was going to talk about some of the goals of the revitalization committee, until you really know what's going to happen, you can't really do a full remedial action plan, because it's all based on what the uses are going to be later on. We'll have an outline of it. So let me just look at my notes for 1 second. Again, we're testing on-site and informing yourselves about potential off-site based on the grade of where those properties are. And I know you go up the hill, Patriot Way, I believe. There's some other things happening we'll be checking out. But this is really to inform you of what the best strategy is going to be and where the money's going to come from to pay for it. As always said, it really doesn't make sense to me, but the polluter cannot apply for funding. So you're going to have to bring in other partners. If it's going to be private development, it's going to be a negotiation, but we're a long way away. The final thing I'll tell you is all of this is going to get started towards the end of July. Fuss and O'Neill will work on their phase 1s during the month of August, do their phase 2s. Very important to do that in September and October. Believe it or not, if there's an early frost,
they can't dig holes. So they have to really get in the ground, no pun intended, September, October. The phase 3 is more and more administrative, quantities, how it's going to be, where it's going to go. There's a big landfill problem in Connecticut, so that's not always an easy, we'll just bring it to Danbury. That's not the way it works. So that's the schedule. We're supposed to be done with the entire scope of work the end of January and into February. And with the state, that's a little flexible. That's just a self-imposed schedule. You really have a couple of years, but because of the nature of the schedule with Public Works to move the facility in 26 to 27, whenever that's going to be, you need to start planning on what's going to happen the day after. Start planning now, because I know from doing probably a dozen or 15 brownfield projects, some at this scale, it takes years to, get all the funding in place, get all the players in place. That 2026 date will come really quickly. So that is what I have tonight. I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions for Dale?
Very informative, thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Dale.
Okay.
Thank you, Woolley.
Have a good night.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Next, Mayor Furman, Riverfront Revitalization.
Good evening, Mayor Bass, members of the Town Council, Corporation Chairman Ole Karp, and consultant Dale Crew. And I want to introduce another member of the Riverfront Committee who's here tonight, McAdory Lipscomb, who's our newest member, and we're glad to have him and glad that he's here. So I've come to give a quick update of where we stand, because I thought it would tandem well, the mayor thought it would tandem well with what the corporation's doing. So, New Milford Riverfront. Just to repeat, it's the only slide I'm repeating really from other presentations you've seen. Just to remind everyone that basically we're working to create a dynamic riverfront that will catalyze community development, be economically resilient and sustainable, and that we will be able to generate some revenue for the town and jobs to town, all the while protecting the river and its ecosystem. And we know this is a long-term plan because it's
Mayor,
been going on for a while.
When did we start this?
2016 we were formed.
That wasn't last week either.
No.
2 weeks ago. So this is just an overview of the properties that are involved, and the scope is limited here to really the town properties of the Youngs Field, the Public Works facilities, Native Meadows, and the Helen Marks Park. If you remember, we had an initial concept plan that we worked with a firm called WXY from New York City, and they and their landscape design team, their engineers, we worked together with a number of public input sessions where people could come and interactively.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
What?
you had all the charrettes that we have with the public, but
Yes.
I mean, just so the public here and on video can hear it again and again.
Yes.
I think it's important that we say, there's never been talk of the green space that we all hold and cherish and want to continue that. There's never thought of putting buildings, housing on the greenscape at Youngs Field, which we call Youngs Field.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, never been a talk about
No,
that.
and you'll see that there's none in the concept plan. If there's any development, it's from Public Works property on over, not on the fields. And so this was the initial concept plan. It included connections to downtown. It included some gateway properties as suggestions, like the old Southworths could perhaps someday be incorporated into the overall plan, et cetera. So this was what we started with. After the community charrettes that we did, and we did, I said, a lot of them. We even did one over Zoom with during COVID with polling. People were able to interactively participate. And we have taken that plan and we've worked on it over a while, and things do take time. And we have refined the concept. And in updating this concept plan, we evaluated a lot of alternatives. So on the plan before, it called for some buildings to go on Patriots Way. No longer calls for that. we called for a pedestrian bridge, which really is not affordable. And so that was a wish and not a need and not a want. It's not necessary for the project. And we did not assign any uses to the development parcels. So it's open. We don't know if it's housing, we don't know if it's going to be a hotel, we don't know if it's an event center or a parking lot. I mean, there's no uses. We work with a firm called SLR, which is formerly known as Malone and McBroom. I think many of you on the council have worked with them on projects in the past. And to come up with this alternative or updated concept plan. We compiled a regulatory scheme where the scheme recommends brownfield assessments, and as you can see, it's happening already. It proposes a review of zoning and regulations to complement the plan that we come up with and to allow for it, because as I think I pointed out last time I was here before you, it's mixed zones in there, so it's not consistent zoning. And we'd like to propose some design standards so that people will know when they're coming in to develop, if we put it out for that, that they have to meet certain standards. It has to keep New Milford, New Milford. I mean, that's number one. And we contemplated having shovel-ready parcels. So the refinements also include a feasible realignment for Youngsfield Road. We had talked about realigning the road because Patriots Way is not a road. Patriots Way is a parking lot. And it's being used as a road by trucks because they can make that left-hand turn onto Bridge Street, which you can't do from Youngsfield Road. So we have to fix that. We also have to fix the fact that when you come over Veterans Bridge into town, you get stuck because people are standing there in their cars, sitting there in their cars, waiting to make that turn onto Youngsfield Road. So we need to provide a way for traffic to continue to flow while traffic is waiting to turn. So we want to improve the safety and traffic issues. We were thinking of, and again, nothing is final, this is just we're thinking of, it's a concept plan still, to add an additional turning lane on Bridge Street so traffic can turn onto Youngsfield Road without stopping the bridge. To have provisions for a left turn when you come out of Youngsfield Road so trucks can go onto Bridge Street. They don't have to go through the Patriots Way parking lot and into that really dangerous intersection at Railroad Street where, and then someone's coming down that other street. It's like a four-way intersection. And it's just, I stood there and did traffic counts one time with, I think, the mayor. Yep. And we saw people, unbelievable how they drive through that intersection. So we'd like to make that safe. And then we also want to study the traffic signalization for the intersection and hopefully get DOT involved and the traffic signalization all the way down Bridge Street. We also, in our refinements, we accounted for the needed site grading and drainage. I think some of you remember last year we had to cancel Riverfest because the field flooded. It's funny, the road didn't flood, it was the field. So the flooding was not coming from the river, it was coming from the water, coming downhill into the field, which is not graded properly, and just totally flooded. And it was really sad that we had to cancel that. It's sad that people have to play softball on fields like that are just, ditches and holes. And I know Park and Rec does an excellent job in maintaining it, but it really needs a total redoing of grading and drainage. The proposal develops the elements, the recreational elements, to scale. So where the concept plan kind of just drew them in, it's in scale. Now, they're not necessarily going to be located like this in the final project, but we have them to scale. So it's like a puzzle. We can move them around. We can see what the public feels, what the public wants, and work with that as well. This refined plan extends the river trail from where it ends in Patriots Way. It'll cross the street and go down to Housatonic Avenue to where the Pipe Yard currently is. The Pipe Yard is a It will do improvements to native meadows. There'll be, right now you can't even see the river when you walk the trails in native meadows, so we'll be improving the trails. We're proposing to improve the trails. Everything's proposing. Proposing to build the trails with boardwalks in some places where it continually floods, to put in some outlooks, to put in some signs so people even can understand the natural elements that are in the park, that they can see the wildlife that's in that park. There could be some benches, there could be lots of things in there, and we could really have a wonderful urban park right here in the center of town. This plan calls for the undergrounding of utilities. Back about 30 years ago when I worked with the firm to do the plan, the downtown revitalization plan with the new sidewalks. The first thing we did was we decided to take out the utility lines, and that's why New Milford's so beautiful. I mean, it would still be beautiful, but it's more beautiful without those lines. And we want the same thing to happen here, so we're proposing that the power lines along Youngsfield Road come down, going up to Housatonic, and also from the corner of Youngsfield and Bridge Street up to the Green, because that would just make the whole entrance to New Milford absolutely stunning. This also includes Helen Marks Park, which currently is the T-ball field. And what else? And I think I already talked about the in-depth potential regulatory scheme. So this is, and I know it's really hard to see, and I will have copies for you. This is almost the same map that we showed last time, only it's been had some changes made to it. So it points out all the different things that I just kind of talked about. This is the park section of it, a little closer up so you can see. And again, like I said, they will not all be clustered like that. They will probably be more spread out with some space. But little things that we didn't think about before, like by the amphitheater, people might have to bring in trucks to bring in sound equipment or different things. So there's even turf reinforcement there so that, the grass, won't get ruined when you bring it in. There'll be paths, there'll be waterways. You can see in the center of it all, there's like a group of bushes. That's a drainage mitigation site so that if we need to, water has a place to drain to. And storms, and also the Helen Marks Park can be used as a mitigation site for work as well. We'll go along the top of Patriots Way. There'll be, walkways and pathways leading down. They will all be handicapped accessible. They will be lighted. And they'll be beautiful. This is the land that is open for possible development. It's the Public Works parcels. When you add it all together, it's about 7 acres. I mean, we're not talking hundreds of acres of development here. So the uses of those properties, as I said, is still open. There's nothing definite. I think it's going to be a combination of what the public would like to see and what the market will bear, what the market will bring, and finances. So, there's still a ways to go on that. The 4A parcel is where the Public Works is now. 4B is private property. We've been in communication with the landowners, but we have to retouch with them and continue discussions. 4C, look how long that is. That's the recycling center and the old ambulance barn property. So as Dale said, it's just a long stretch along the river. And that last one, 4D, is the pipe yard where the Aspetuck River comes through as it enters the Housatonic River. And probably, because of its proximity to the river, we don't know if there's a buildable footprint there or not yet. Something that we'll be looking at. It might support a small store of some sort, or could even be like a bicycle, kayak rental kind of place, to fit in with the theme. But, again, time will tell. So what's ahead? We want to work on developing an RFP to prepare a strategic redevelopment plan and a feasibility analysis. Step 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8 will be to engage and seek extensive community and stakeholder input. The consultant will work to set up charrettes, to set up surveys, to set up ways to, get public sentiment involved. These are pictures from the charrettes that we did a couple of years ago, which were really very successful and very energizing, both for the committee, the consultant, and the public who did come. This consultant that we will look for will also provide design and engineering services to get us to a, what's the word I'm looking for? The development design, I guess. Yeah, so that we'll be able to then start to put together some costs and pricing and some, engineering. They'll work to do zoning regulations and design standards and to recommend potential funding sources. This will bring us to a point where we will be shovel-ready on paper. We will be permit-ready on paper. And we'll be here, we'll be here many times, before the end of the process, and hopefully you'll be able to come to some of the charrettes as well, and give your input. And also we'd be looking for the consultant to recommend some funding sources as we go ahead. It's hard to put some dates on these things because we are working with a lot of moving pieces. As you recall, we have the fields on Youngs Field Road that are very precious to our softball players and to other, community people. We have the mayor, I know, is looking to reinvigorate the sports facility committee. And so once that gets in gear, we'll have more of an idea of a timeline and a feasibility. One sec, Katie. And then the other thing that we're waiting on is, Dale alluded to, is Public Works and their timetable. And then after that, the assessment, because that's going to also give us a timetable that we have to work with. So at this point, it's really hard to give you dates, but I think we can start to get that RFP developed, and by the time that's done, we'll be closer to knowing dates. Katie, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, absolutely what happens is going to depend on what Ole and Dale talked about. So are you going to wait to find out what test A, B, or 1, 2, and 3, and how good it really is and how easy it'll be to clean it up? Or if it's not, before you go forward with this, because that's a predicator.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it turns out to be a really long, drawn-out, large amount of contamination that needs to be taken away.
Right.
The doing this is going to be a moot point until that's all done.
Well, first of all, drafting the RFP is going to take several
I
months.
understand.
Yeah, and also, we're going to wait to hear from the assessment before we.
Yeah, the other thing,
forward.
in listening to this and looking at the process ahead, we'll be in a way ahead of where they're going to be at that point. And one of the things that we always talk to the licensed environmental professionals, LEP, is about in the draft remedial action plan is how you deal with the contamination. So if you wanted to have a parking lot somewhere, is it permeable, meaning water goes right through the material that you paved it with, or non-permeable, which changes drainage? If you're going to put a cap on it, will that allow you to do something else?
Right.
And these are the things that will inform whatever they're doing.
Right. I just want to, and I say a lot of these things because it's not just us that have been doing this
Right.
all along, but I think it is very important for people to understand and not, run around with hair on fire, that we're going to spend time and money to decide where we're going to put the water park and where we're going to put the splash pad and that. Because of course that's important, and you've already told us how that happened. But you can't, there's nothing to be done with that until you find out.
Right, we're not going to put the cart before the horse.
That's right. And unfortunately, we have had a DPW department there for many years, and it's, I'm sure there's going to be something. So that's why I'm just saying, I know you're not going to put a time on it, but I really, not for you, but for the world, to know that it is, the only way to do that is to find out what's underneath the worst part.
Right.
Or what we see. What we
And
think
this was
is
the
wrong.
thinking in the first place about going for the grant, to look at
Yeah, right.
the conditions out there.
Yeah, so that's all. I know, look, we're all excited to want to move forward with it. And we were also, I think, in another couple of places in town, but, you know, we're still
Right.
talking
No,
about it.
and it all has to fit together. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many
Yeah.
moving pieces, and you know, it took Brookfield, you know, whether you like what they did there or not, they did do something.
Took a long time.
It took over 20 years. It took Meriden, that has that wonderful park there, with the Meriden Green, they call it now, where they unburied a river that was buried for years, a polluted river, and it's a gorgeous, that was 20-something years in the making also. So I'm hoping this won't be, because I want to live to see it happen.
Well, that's right. That's right. And the funding for this, that's what people ask me about, is how are we ever going to do this? Oh, yeah, it's all great and lovely pictures. How are we going to pay for it?
Well, that's part of what we're doing also, is
So
looking at
you
funding
need time to
sources.
go through and work out where
Yes.
you can get your funding.
And piece by piece, and, you know, whether the town decides to sell or lease property, you know, it will produce income for the town. So the development pieces could. Or, you know, what happened,
brought that up.
do you remember what happened in Danbury when they were doing all that downtown renovation, that with the Patriots Garage and all that stuff? They had all these green pads, and they started using it as a green to do concerts and to do flea markets, do all kinds of, and people, they never built on it. They kept it a green. So, you know, time will tell what
Well,
happens.
that's right.
Yeah.
And you've made that clear that these are thoughts, not
Yeah.
process.
Right.
Anybody have any other questions?
Oh, wait a minute, wait, I got 2 more slides.
Okay.
Oh, no rush me. You'll know when it's over. So there's a role for town residents to provide input, come to meetings. The Riverfront Committee meets most monthly. The public's invited to come. When we have our charrettes and our surveys and our booths, come. And the town meeting is the authority for any sale or long-term lease of property for appropriations over, I think it's $1/3 of a mil.
When is your next meeting that any people?
It would be in August. We're not meeting tomorrow night, so we will be meeting again
And
in
so
August,
the-
the second Tuesday. I don't know the date by heart.
Okay.
Second Tuesday in
And
August.
where do you meet?
We meet right here,
At what time?
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Hope to see you there, Katie. So there is a role for town residents. That's number one. The Riverfront Committee, as you know, there's a lot of different things with this plan. And not only are we working on Riverfront, but we work on Riverfest. And when Ole said that the corporation acted as a fiduciary agent, it wasn't for Riverfront Committee, it was for Riverfest, just to make that clear. And as you can see at the bottom, whatever we do, we report to the town council, because you are the boss of the town.
But you really need to have the public input, and I think
Right,
we
public
need to
input
get more
first,
people.
yes, involved. And then the role of the town council, you approve grant applications, consultant contracts, you adopt recommendations, you approve incentives. It's up to you whether to pass things on to town meeting. So really, it ultimately does come to the town council as the final decision maker. And the role of the corporation, as Ole talked about, is to apply for or implement grants, work with land banks, act as the town's development agency. So I want to thank you very much for your time and wish you a good evening.
Thank you.
Mayor, thank you to you and the committee, and Ole, thank you to you, Dale, and the corporation.
Just got it.
Next is we have
August 13th, Cleveland. Sorry.
discussion and updates on regulation, because we talked about this last town council meeting. We're not going to look at an ordinance, but look at regulating short-term rentals. Randy, did you have any updates?
Yes, I spoke to the mayor, and my heartiest recommendation, and I usually board committees, you need a committee. And the Mayor and I talked about this. People who are experienced with this, based on what rentals or based on the fact that they're renters. And I think that a committee, a mayoral committee should be appointed. They determine. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. When I spoke with other lawyers, these people were shooting, just like me. We're shooting in the dark as to what to do. Some want to do zoning, some want to do regulatory schematics, some want to do health issues. And, you know, lawyers write ordinances and they're done with it. And somebody else has to live with it. Has to live with it. Right, exactly. So my recommendation, and I don't like practicing that way, so my recommendation is to get a committee of people who have, even stakeholders, to determine what the most appropriate procedure should be and how it can be enforced. I will remain recommending against zoning ordinance. It doesn't react. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
I'd like
so-
to make a motion, Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate.
That we do create a mayoral advisory committee to assist the public and take input from people who are involved in both sides, and then move from there and see how it all goes.
Second?
I'd say 5. Oh, thank you, Bob.
I'd say 5.
That's just me. I mean, don't, that's the mayor. I'm
A
just,
5 to 7 person
Yep.
subcommittee on this max.
Okay.
That's all you can do.
We have a motion and a second.
Bob seconded it.
second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I'll bring the names at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sal?
Sal?
Come on, we go motion right now, let's go. Motion to adjourn.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.